Welcome, everyone. It's great to be with you. My name's Derek Duncan. I'm the pastor here at Chapel of the Cross in Westboro, Massachusetts. And you've tuned into, whether you know it or not, a show called Getting Answers. What we're trying to do is create an environment for us to have a dialogue and talk about things that may be on your heart. Maybe questions that you've always had for a pastor, for a church, maybe some things that are going on in your life you just don't understand, things about the Bible. I mean, it's really open-ended. It's our desire to help you know more about Jesus Christ and about what it means to be a follower of His in a simple and authentic way. So glad you could join us. Excited to be spending this time with you each and every week. I'm assisted here by Jillian Morin. She's my big helper making all this thing happen. I'm not the technology guru type, but she's really good at it. So it's her job to make me look good.
Well, I'm going to do my best. And certainly this is just another time for us to hang out and talk and be together. So I'm looking forward to it. As Pastor Derek said, my name is Jillian Morin. I'm the director of worship here at Chapel. And I also, like to dabble in this technology stuff. So together we kind of plan this opportunity to interact with you guys. So please, if you're watching right now, go ahead and comment either on YouTube or Facebook, and we should be able to see it here. So if you comment, tell us your name, tell us where you're watching from, and then as we go along throughout this live video, you can send in questions or comments or, Pastor Derek, you wanted me to throw you like a softball, right?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll keep it like, let's not stress them out too much, But to kick things off, I have a little activity for us that Pastor Derek doesn't know about, but I'm just going to do it. So I'm going to show you a coffee cup, all right? So each week I'm going to break out one of these Starbucks coffee cups. And on my side, it says where it's from. Someone that used to work here left a whole bunch of these. So I'm trying to, we'll do one a week. All right, so can you see this?
Yes, I can.
All right, now where do you think?
Wow. I see a
What
rocket,
state?
a football. I would either say Texas or Florida.
Oh, all right, let's see. Do we have any participants here? Anyone know the state I'm drinking from? No, you said Texas or Florida?
Yeah.
On this side there's an airplane, there's a beach.
Oh, maybe it could be Alabama. I don't know. Is it Alabama?
Alabama.
Sweet.
Greenbow, Alabama.
I knew I had it in there somewhere for me. Appreciate that.
All right, so we already have someone saying hi. So we've got someone here. Their YouTube name is Peppa Pig, like the cartoon.
Okay.
And they said, "Hi, I'm from Brazil." So we have someone join us from Brazil.
That's exciting. Hi. I've become familiar with Peppa Pig. I have my grandchildren living with me these days, and it's a lot of fun. And we watch Peppa Pig and Bubble Guppies and everything else that I thought was way past my prime in life, but I've been enjoying it and learning to appreciate all those cartoons with the kiddos.
That's awesome. We also have someone named Dante who is saying hi to us. So hello, Dante.
Hello.
All right. So Pastor Derek, what's on your heart today? What are you thinking about? What do you kind of plan on sharing with us here?
Yeah, I thought I'd start off with just sort of taking stock about where we're at in life in general. With the pandemic and everything going on, with school about to start or hopefully start, or some sort of hybrid version of what that's going to look like, with all the stress that comes with that, with jobs and economic issues. I mean, I just feel like we're in sort of a tumultuous stage of life. And a lot of times that can really affect how we live, how we think, and those kinds of things, especially in the area of anxiety and worry and those kinds of things. So I thought I'd talk just a little bit about that. I come from a proud family of anxious people. I often say worrying is one of my spiritual gifts. I'm really good at it. And I don't intentionally get up in the morning and say, hey, what can I be anxious about today? Or what's gonna happen today that might be scary or frightening or whatever. It's just kind of part of who I am. We're products of not only God's creation, but of the gene pool and our family background and environment and those kinds of things. So I've had issues in this particular area, but I've learned to have peace and strength through them. So maybe you're the kind of person that doesn't feel anxiety, and if that's true, I don't like you very much. So make sure we don't talk. But
okay. Just so you know, I'm chiming in here. All right. it's not that I don't have anxiety.
Yeah.
It's just that like I kind of err on the like, somebody else will take care of it.
Yes, I know. Some of us are more in touch with reality than others.
All right.
But
I don't know that it's a lack of reality, but maybe it's because I had an older sister that had to be responsible, and she had to, like, she kind of took the brunt of responsibility.
sure.
So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, I know. I really think family dynamics can really play into it. I had a father that was very stoic and never really got upset about anything. And then I had a mom that yelled and screamed and cried like all the time. So I'm a little schizophrenic. Sometimes I act in both ways. But yeah, I totally understand. And it's not like anxiety totally controls everything about who I am, but it's definitely an issue that a lot of us face and a lot of us don't really even talk about sometimes. So I want to make sure we help in any way that we can. The Bible says, okay.
Oh, no. I just wanted to let you know. John King has joined us today.
Okay.
And he said he plans on watching us on the big screen TV.
Well, that's exciting.
So, I apologize for the HD quality that you're going to see us both in. But we're glad that you joined us
Thanks, John.
this afternoon.
So I was going to mention here that the Bible says in Philippians, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. One of the things that sort of bugs me about Scripture, and I don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like it's quite often asking me things that I can't do. So don't be anxious about anything. Well, that's kind of impossible. If we're in touch with any sense of normalcy or reality at all, we're going to worry about stuff. So it's really not saying don't have concerns, don't have issues of worry and those kinds of things, because everybody has burdens in life. But if you look at the word anxious, though, what it's trying to say is we all carry burdens, and it could be anything from financial difficulties, relational difficulties, job, career choices, problems with our kids, those kinds of things. When we carry those, picture it like carrying burdens with you. You got your arms around sort of a big load of stuff that you're carrying. And what it's saying is when you get to this point where your burdens are pretty heavy, what you want to do is you want to lay them down and ask for help rather than trying to fix it and carry it longer yourself. Part of the whole journey of being a follower of Christ is coming to an end of yourself and realizing that I can't do anything to fix all of this stuff that I'm carrying. And the more I try to fix it on my own, the heavier it gets, the more stuff I pick up. And so you don't want to get to that point of being completely stuck where you feel like these burdens have piled on you so much that you don't have the ability to give them away to someone that could actually help you, which is God. So when it says don't be anxious for anything, it says basically don't carry these burdens to the point where you feel completely helpless. Before you get to that point, or if you're at that point, lay them down and just be honest with God and say, I can't handle this. This is too much for me. I mean, God's God and He's perfect and He knows what you're thinking anyway. You might as well spit it out and talk to Him and just say exactly how you're feeling. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do and that I encourage myself is I just want to pray and talk to God. That's what prayer is. And I want to lay these things down. And no matter how overwhelming it might seem, I worship the God of the universe that created all things and can do all things. And He can help me have peace. This verse goes on and talks about, and the peace which transcends and passes all understanding will guard your hearts. And so part of the process of dealing with anxiety is taking your burdens, laying them down, asking genuinely for help. I can't live life on my own. And then allowing God to speak into that reality, either through reading Scripture or the voice of His Spirit in our lives, those kinds of things, and getting to know Jesus, who completely identifies with us in all things and can help us with whatever we're facing.
That's awesome. So we had Dante responded to us and wrote, I think he was looking for which scripture verse you were referencing. And then I think he was asking, was that Matthew 6:34, which is the verse about no one can serve two masters. What was the verse that you were?
Yeah, I was actually there's a similar Matthew 6:33, and those kinds of thoughts are parallel a little bit. But I was actually in Philippians. Okay. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6.
Okay.
And 7 are the main places where I've been.
All right, I'll write that up here.
One of the things that you got to understand is not everybody really recognizes that anxiety can be a problem. And one one of the things I always tell people is that if you're anxious about something, that's a real problem, whether other people understand it or not. My mom used to call me a worrywart, and it's not a big deal, and quit fretting about things that don't matter. Well, they mattered to me, therefore they were real to me. And so part of anxiety is not everyone's going to understand it, but I believe God does. And one of the beautiful things about Jesus Christ coming to live in our humanity, to live in our skin, so to speak, is he experienced everything that we experience, but he overcame it. And he didn't sin or struggle with it. Struggling is the wrong way to say that. He did struggle, but he didn't sin. One of the great passages in the New Testament is when he's praying in the Garden of Gethsemane before he was going to give his life for us on the cross. He said, "Hey, God, this is a lot for me, and is there any other way that I can accomplish your will by not dying, by not going through what I'm going to go through to help bring forgiveness to the world?" And then he prayed and he laid it out there and he said, "But I want your will, not mine." And so part of that reality is being honest with the struggle, but then also just recognizing that just because no one else really understands it. If you remember, the disciples were supposed to be praying with them and they were all falling asleep. I can relate to that a little bit. Sometimes someone else's anxiety doesn't move me enough and let's just go to sleep, whatever. But that's not how we want to be. These guys fell asleep and Jesus was alone. But it didn't matter whether they understood it or not. It was real, and he was trying to deal with it before his God. So it's real. I might also say that sometimes it's not rational, and that's part of the problem with anxiety. I have a deep and abiding fear of gorillas, and it's not really rational. I've never really had a personal experience in a bad way with a gorilla, but I've had dreams, and if you think about it, they're like these little creepy animals. They got people hands, and they look at you like they're going to be really nice, and then they grab you and rip your head off. And I don't know, there's just something about them. I'm just not a big fan. So it's not that I hate nature or anything. But where did that fear come from in my life? I have absolutely no idea. Where did it, maybe from those weird flying monkeys in the early movie of
The Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. Yeah, it scared me a lot as a kid. Maybe it was something like that. I don't know, but it's not rational. But again, just because it's not rational doesn't mean that it isn't having an effect on my life. I just need to be willing to yield it and give it over to the Lord and ask for his help.
John King just wrote a verse for us. 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Came to mind.
That's a good one.
Absolutely.
That's a good one, and that was kind of another little issue there. A little side note is why would you give your anxiety to God? Well, because he's powerful and he can help you with it, but also he really does care for you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I had trouble believing that at different times in my life, and that's just a lie from the enemy, that he does care for me, and he's not mad at me because I have anxiety or I'm weird and have a gorilla thing going on or whatever. He really does love me, and he really wants to help me, and I appreciate that about him. He doesn't put me down or make me feel bad for what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. I don't know. I have anxiety as a mom. There's certain things that always freak me out. Like every time, I have 4 kids, and 3 of them are all very close in age. So whenever we get into a parking lot, I'm just afraid. In my mind, I just visualize them hitting the sliding doors open and just like running out into the parking lot. And so I used to kind of open the sliding door and wrap my foot around sideways until I could get everybody unbuckled and going. And so I just have this. That's one thing I can definitely identify as like it's unwarranted. I mean, there's a validity to the fear of keeping them safe, but it like rises up in me. And even if my son Matthew, who's 10, who's very smart, even if he just starts to ask me a question like, "Oh, should I bring my backpack or do we need?" I can't even listen to him because I'm so riddled with that anxiety that something bad's going to happen. And anxiety's really, you don't just dismiss it, just because it's not the same for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't know why we each have our own version of what makes us anxious. Again, it's environment and growing up and different things that we've experienced in life. Mm-hmm. But again, though, it really is real, and a lot of times it really isn't rational. That doesn't mean that it's not based in a nugget of truth. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, in theory, your kids could bolt out of the car and run across the highway or whatever, but a lot of times, we waste a lot of energy trying to figure out what it is, and rather than just giving it to the Lord. Like Matthew chapter 6 talks about, and 7 talks about worrying and being anxious doesn't add any length to your life. In fact, it can just drain some of the joy out of it and those kinds of things. And so one of my goals in life is just not to waste a lot of energy on things that are irrational and that don't fill me up with joy and with hope.
So how does that work out during this pandemic time? How's that working for you, Pastor Derek?
Yeah,
I mean, it's an excellent goal. And
yeah.
I mean, us working so closely together, you've seen me on my like, woohoo, let's go. And then like days where or moments where I just can't. And, almost the worst comes out of me when I'm really that riddled and, stressed out with that. So,
yeah.
So how does that?
Yeah, a couple things I think for me is just being realistic about what's going on in life. That I used to really struggle with life being a roller coaster and life being good and bad at the same time. Like I would say, hey, things are going really well at church, but things are going pretty crummy at home. And how is that possible? Why can't things go well all the time? Or if everything's going to be bad, why can't it all be bad? But it's just the broken world that we live in. And so we have to get used to this idea of we're in a roller coaster ride. It'll have joys. It'll have dips. It'll be good. It'll be bad at sometimes. But what we have to do is when we feel like we're going to an extreme of being completely stuck and overwhelmed, that's when we sort of cut it off. So practically speaking, don't be anxious, don't worry, don't do it. That's just not possible for me. Yeah. But when I start to have a problem with it, I recognize it more the older I get, and then I can stop it more. Yeah. Sort of like, okay, give the roller coaster ride a break. Everything stops for a moment. Hey, God, I need you to help me. Like the worst thing for me to do, again, is try to fix it on my own. I call it catastrophizing. It's probably not an actual word.
As an English teacher,
probably not.
It sounds awesome. I mean, if it's not a word, we should get on that.
Yeah.
Catastrophizing.
So what that means to me is I can start with a little worry, but then I can just blow it up in my mind, and then it starts to expand in multiple areas. So my son comes home and doesn't get a good grade on a test. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like, wow, he's really struggling in English. Maybe I should get some tutoring, because if he doesn't have English skill, he's not going to go to college. And by the way, he's probably not going to go to college. And then he's going to meet some creepo girl that is terrible for him, and she's not going to love the Lord. And pretty soon, he'll be on drugs. And by the way, I'm the worst father ever, and I don't know why my wife loves me. Well, maybe she doesn't love me. Like my brain, I know it sounds weird.
No.
But my brain just starts spinning.
You go.
And at some point, I've got to have God's Spirit in my heart just to say, stop. Yeah. You're not helping yourself, and let's just get some perspective. My kid had a bad test grade. That doesn't mean anything. Why am I wasting energy on saying, he's, Harvard's out or whatever? Yeah. Or why do I even want him to go to Harvard? That's a whole nother issue, But it's I have to have these times in my life where I just talk with the Lord and stop, and then just lay those burdens down. That picture of rather than carrying it and having to be this huge pile. Jesus, I need you. Now, believe me, I've tried to fix it other ways. I've tried to seek entertainment. It could be alcohol. It could be relationships with people. But nothing fixes brokenness other than someone that's perfect. So like if I try to fix it in a relationship, that person is likely just as broken as I am. And so it's two broken people together trying to figure out anxiety, which is better than being alone. But ultimately you need somebody perfect that conquered this stuff to actually is outside of yourself that can enter in and give you a whole new hope. And that's what Jesus does and what he's done for me.
When you talk about catastrophizing, is that
the
right pronunciation? Yeah. Okay.
So with an umlaut, sort of.
With an umlaut, a tilde somewhere.
Yeah.
So when you started to describe that, how you went from here to here and here, and then that could be that, and that could be that. So I can 100% identify that type of thought process and angst, but I process that in a different way. So for me, I get anxious and excited and distracted about something that leads to something else, that leads to something else, and leads to something else. And I'm like, I'm just in hearing you describe that. For me, it doesn't root in fear, but for me, it roots in like, ooh, what about this? And what about this? And this could work, and this could be the most amazing thing. And I think a lot of times people, I would have to be careful if I were to just go off the deep end and start doing drugs or something, that would be really dangerous for a person like me, because I'm always kind of seeking, oh, what if I did this? And that looks really good, and I could do this, and I could see how the way I'm wired could lead me towards that type of route.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if a lot of people kind of have that potential, or if a lot of people struggle with that, well, this could lead to this, could lead to this.
Yeah.
Whether it's rooted in seeking out something that really satisfies you, or anxiety and fear.
Yeah. So in some of my examples, I sort of concentrated on the fear angle of it, but that's not really the root of everything. Some of it could be just lack of focus, or wanting attention, or wanting to continue good things that actually turn into bad things.
Yeah.
Like I'm addicted to books, and I think that books are where my mind gets its ability to have illustrations and to think clearly about both Christian issues and non-Christian issues, and be a better communicator, those kinds of things. If I'm not careful, I buy books and I spend too much money, and all of a sudden I got like 1,000 books around. So I've taken a good thing, but I wanted more and more and more out of it.
Yeah.
And that could definitely eventually turn into anxiety, but it causes problems. So it's really something that's sort of broken in our brain a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of whether you want to call it OCD, or whether you want to call it, I like to call it intelligence.
Right.
Yeah,
Definitely
it just feels good to me.
Yeah.
But you can get distracted. You can focus on too many things. You could put too much attention on something that's not bad, but it's not actually the most important thing for you right now.
Yeah.
And then it all sort of piles together, and it turns into maybe not fear-based anxiety, but stress. Mm-hmm. People don't understand that stress doesn't have to be from something that's very scary and negative. Moving into a new home is a really good thing, but it's incredibly stressful and creates a lot of anxiety because of hooking up utilities and deciding what walls to hang pictures on, all those kinds of things. Your kids are running around, you can't control them, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I guess in general, what I'm trying to get to is that point where I stop and I humble myself and I ask for the Lord's help, no matter what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And practically speaking, it's sort of taking account, every few hours of each day, and just talking with the Lord and saying, here's what's going on, and I need to lay this down to you, and here's what I'm thinking about, that kind of stuff. And he really does help along the way. And then just asking for focus. You and I both have similar brains. We can focus on 1,000 different things, and we're interested in different things, and which is fun. But if you're not careful, you can get to the end of your life and you can ask that question only what could I have accomplished if I would have focused more? Yeah. If I would have been all in on one certain thing versus trying to be all in on a dozen things or whatever. It can really be just as detrimental to your health, without the fear part of it. So it's a good point.
Yeah. John added a comment here. He said, I too have discovered through prayer that he still speaks, peace be still, to the waves. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, we all kind of get carried away. I think about arguments that I've had either with family members or friends or my husband. Hi, Sean, love you, miss you. He's not watching right now, but he'll watch this later. And how easy it is in a moment to just get so focused on what's right in front of you. And the best strategy that him and I have is like when we're in the thick of it, we're really disagreeing on something, is just like, all right, let's just pause for a second. Because, when I get mentally distracted, or I think about this and this and this and this, if I just keep going, I just never have that peace, and I just self-destruct. And the same thing happens like relationally when you're arguing and you're at each other's throats. But when you pause and you step away, then you at least give space for God to come in. You at least give space for yourself to calm down a little bit. But how do you not get too far ahead? Like, what's some practical steps when you start to feel yourself really get anxious? Like, I don't know, what are some practical steps that people can do to identify that they're, off track, or that they're heading down a road that's not going to be healthy for them? And what are some practical things that they can do to kind of interrupt that, stop that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think a couple things come to mind. One would be to go ahead and let yourself extrapolate it out to the worst case scenario. Because sometimes if I spin long enough, if I spin it out there, I go, well, that can't happen, or I don't even know if that's going to happen. Like, so, my son's not going to marry somebody that I like, but who knows, maybe he'll marry the greatest person in the world. So like, but what's the worst case scenario of that? My son will still have a relationship together. We'll still love each other. We might have some relational tension, but even the worst case scenario isn't as bad as what I might think it might be. And that sort of kind of calms me down and say, okay, that's really not that possible or whatever. Another thing I do is I depend upon people, like if I'm really stuck and worried about something, I talk to somebody about it and just ask for their perspective, because sometimes I just don't have the ability to see it on my own, but someone else can say, hey, I love you, but like, you're crazy, or, I love you, but that's not likely to happen. Or, hey, the issue that you're talking about is one thing. Don't blow it up into this big thing. Like my wife and I have cues in our marriage where she knows that sometimes I can overreact and be emotional and stuff, and which is really, better than being non-emotional. I mean, I think it's healthier. I'm much more in touch with my emotions. But she'll make sure that I focus on what she's wanting to talk to me about versus making it big. She'll say, hey, honey, we need to talk, which is code for, oh, crud, I've totally messed something up. And she'll say, I know, I want you to know I love you. I think you're a great husband. She'll give me these like little positive cues. And then she'll say, but I want to talk to you about this one thing. And that really helps me, because my brain won't jump ahead to the ultimate negative. It's like, okay, she's really just saying she needs a little bit more help around the house, or whatever it might be. And she just knows me and understands me. So whether it's a marriage or a relationship, we can really help each other with this stuff. I mean, it's not a mistake that God's a relational God. It's God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. He's a triune God, 3 in 1, and he's a relationship himself. And so we can't function without the help of each other, giving us perspective. So it sounds kind of simple maybe, but I ask for help.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. It's good to know too. So like if I don't, for example, struggle too much with anxiety, and maybe I'm too laid back, or I just put my fingers in my ears, but I do have people that I love very much that do struggle with that, and or that are going through hard times. And sometimes I'm a doer and a fixer. So someone will say, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or they'll just ever so slightly let me know kind of what's going on. And I have to tell myself, Jill, don't list off 18 different things that they could do to improve their situation. Because it's not always, okay, well, if you did this, and have you talked about this, and what if you considered this, and have you tried, like, I just go there automatically.
Yeah.
But my closest friends, when there's that moment of opportunity to support them or help them or be there for them, when I say less, or like your wife, all right, I want to talk to you about something. I love you, but this needs to be talked about. It's just one thing, as opposed to all 18 things. So that's good advice, even from the perspective of someone that's like, okay, you're okay, but you're with people that are really struggling right now, or they're facing a hard time. It's not always the right thing to do to give all the things, all the advice, but just simply be there for them.
Yeah, no, and don't be ashamed to ask questions, because sometimes we like to think that we're these interpersonal geniuses where we totally understand what's going on with everybody. But a lot of times I just don't, and so I'll ask a question and say, okay, Julie, that's my wife. Julie, do you want me to weigh in and give you some advice on this issue, or do you just want me to listen? Because I don't always pick up the cue, and so there's no harm in just asking. And then it sort of takes the pressure off and allows you to communicate the way that you should. Or she'll say, hey, I need you to listen, but then a couple hours from now we'll talk about solutions, but I don't want them right now. Fine. Now I understand. Now I can communicate and love her in a way that she needs versus what I think she might need, which I think is the big problem in relationships with people. We view people as we view ourselves, and we treat them like we want to be treated, and sometimes that's just not right. It's not necessarily evil. It's just we're egocentric in how we view things. So
yeah, that's very true. All right, let's take a break here for a second and go over to our comments. We have Ivo Luis Lira says hi.
Hi.
Ivo, I wonder if you're from Brazil. Se você é do Brasil, fala oi pra mim, tá? I said if you're from Brazil, say hi to me. And we still got a few other people that are watching us. So guys, if you're joining us either right now or you've been watching this whole time, you can go ahead and comment either on Facebook or on YouTube, and we'll see those comments. And if you have any questions about what we talked about today, or you have anything you'd like to add, don't be afraid. We're here. We're happy to field those questions, as long as they're not too hard. Right?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Not too hard.
We'll get to the hard ones. We just got to warm up to
Episode 1. So let's keep it nice and easy.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else you'd like to share today, Pastor Derek?
No, I think that's what was sort of on my mind, and maybe I might also share, just give yourself a break a little bit. Like you'd be pretty weird if you weren't stressed a little bit in this pandemic time and future. And if you're a mom, man, I really pray for moms like crazy, because of you're raising kids, you're putting up with husbands, which can be a struggle. You're now supposed to educate your kids at home or do some sort of video thing back and forth, a hybrid model at school. Mm-hmm. You might be working even yourself. And I want you to realize that you're normal if you're struggling. Being a Christian doesn't mean that you're not going to struggle. It just means that you have a source of help outside of yourself to help you, which is Jesus and His Spirit. But give yourself a break. There's very few super moms and super men and super husbands out there. That's what's so weird about technology, is everything seems great sometimes on Facebook or whatever, but in reality it might not be so great. So don't compare yourself. Give yourself a break, but then go to the right person to help you, which, again, I'm biased, but I think His name is Jesus. And He's the one that lived in all of this anxiety and all of this stuff and overcame it and gave us hope that His power in our lives can help us. So I would say give yourself a break, and then, like I mentioned before, just depend upon God for His strength, because you're not designed to live life in your own power. You're designed to live life with relational help from the God who created you. And so embrace that help and those kinds of things. So as we go along, as we spend more time together in the show, hopefully we can address some of these things and some of the deeper issues of faith and some of the hard things that people go through, whatever it might be, how to actually hear God's voice. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and so very rarely do I get surprised by a question, but I don't always have the answer. But I'd be glad to help you and pray with you about it and do the best that I can. But I look forward to building a relationship with you through technology.
So we've got one more question. I don't know if it's a softball, but we can try.
Okay.
All right. So our friend Peppa Pig, again, who joined us right from the beginning, watching from Brazil, says, what was the event with God, or what was the event with your God that most affected you? What was an event that you had with God? I'm going to say this in Portuguese if I can. Qual era evento com Deus na sua vida que te afetou mais, or que era muito importante, or whatever. So what was an event with God in your life that affected you the most? Boa pergunta, very good question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I've lived long enough. There's lots of things that have gone on and stuff, but I probably, from a ministry perspective, one of the most profound things that's happened to me was going through a time of great evil and suffering with the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. I don't know if you were familiar with it, but
let me say one thing. I'm going to speak in Portuguese again. E desculpa, porque eu sei que meu português não é muito bem, mas ele está falando que era um ataque aqui nos Estados Unidos, que alguém usou bombas e muitas pessoas morreram. E when was this? In the 90s?
Yeah, 1995.
E ele era pastor na igreja neste momento, so he was a pastor at the time of the Oklahoma City bombings, and it was in your city, right?
Yeah, it was in Oklahoma City, and there's terrible things that happen all over the world, and but pain is pain, no matter what the magnitude of. And so this, a homegrown terrorist blew up a truck in front of the federal building and killed 167 people. And so I was one of the ones that was working down on site trying to help people, not in a physical sense, but in a spiritual sense. And I worked at the morgue and those kinds of things. And I guess one of the things that happened to me in there that was so profound was I was trying to help people, and I just couldn't help. It was weird, like I'm a pastor. I'm supposed to know how to help people in this great tragedy, and it wasn't working. And so I just felt like a failure. I felt like I didn't have anything to do to help people.
Let me just say that real quick,
Go ahead.
if I can summarize. So, durante este momento, quando ele é o pastor, e how many people?
167.
166 pessoas morreram. E o trabalho dele é o pastor no mesmo cidade. Então ele está pensando, ok, eu tenho que ajudar todo mundo, mas eu não posso fazer nada para ajudar realmente. Então ele está pensando o que é a minha responsabilidade, o que eu vou fazer, o que eu posso fazer. Então ele está falando isso, que era um momento muito importante e ele não sei. So what happened after that? So you're feeling like you just couldn't do anything that you really wanted to help and you just couldn't.
Right. So all my classes and my theological answers were coming up short.
Toda a educação dele não ajuda nada.
And I think being confronted with such evil discouraged me. And we can talk more about the nature of evil and why bad things happen at some point if you want. But it discouraged me. I knew that wasn't God's plan, but it discouraged me that I couldn't fix it. Mm-hmm. And so literally looking back on it, it kind of saved me in some ways because I realized that God's the only one that can really fix people. I can't. Mm-hmm. I'm just need to be a tool that he can use, Mm-hmm. But it was really hard because I felt responsible and I wanted to help people and I couldn't. Mm-hmm. And so that was a very profound moment for me that said, Derek, if you're going to do this, I need to depend upon God to help, and I need to put the focus on Jesus and not on myself because I just, in and of myself, I can't fix anything really, anything of importance.
Então, so ele falou que, so this was, how many years into ministry were you in?
So I was still in seminary, so probably 8 years in ministry, 9 years, something like that.
So ele era novo no trabalho de pastor e ele falou que era lição muito importante para ele. Quando ele sabe que eu não posso fazer nada para ajudar, a única pessoa, a única, coisa que podem ajudar as pessoas é só Deus. Então, era um momento muito difícil, mas muito importante como pastor, para saber realmente não é ele. Ele não pode salvar ninguém, mas Deus pode sim. So I just said it was such an important time for you as a pastor early on in your career that you could, that you learn in a very difficult situation that you can't save anyone.
Right.
Only God.
Right. And that doesn't feel very good.
Não sente bem.
By the way.
Não sente bem, não.
But feel good, now that I've matured and understand it, I know the real source of help is him and not me. So it takes the pressure off. Yeah. It really gives me peace.
So, então, eu acho que a palavra é pressão de salvar, a pressão de fazer coisas boas. Ele não tem a capacidade para fazer isso, é só Deus. Então, o Deus leva, I don't know the word, alleviated, o pressão levou, coisa assim, mas Deus, era um momento muito importante para o trabalho de pastor, para todo mundo, né, mas for a pastor. I've got someone that says, let's see here. Okay. So Dante is adding, and he's also in Brazil right now. He said the anxiety is high among some evangelical churches here in Brazil. It seems to consider this time of COVID-19 as the judgment days, the judgment time for all. Personally, I don't feel as such, or some kind of preparation to that. So a lot of evangelical churches are saying COVID-19 is the sign that it's, this is the end of the world. How do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, it's difficult for me to jump to that conclusion because people have been saying the end of the world is coming for thousands of years. Yeah. And we've gone through terrible things, World War II, all kinds of things in Vietnam, some tragedies. I gave you one of mine, Oklahoma City, then September 11th and all the things that happened here. I mean, and in our own countries, we have our own tragedies. So I'm very hesitant talk about God's judgment and to talk about the end of the world. I just try to concentrate on what I know for sure. And what I know for sure is Jesus said very clearly, no one's going to know the time and the day. He didn't even know the time and day. He had limited his divine authority so much that to the point where he didn't know what God knew. But that was part of him identifying with us fully in humanity, which is an awesome thing. But I also know that he's going to come back and he's going to fix all this terrible stuff. And those are the things I concentrate on. I want to be ready. I want to use these moments that I have to help as many people know Christ and follow him. But then I want to concentrate on what I know. No one's going to know the time, so why spend a ton of energy with it? And no one really understands the heart of God in terms of when he's going to come back. Because he tarries, it gives us more chance to help people know Christ, which is a good thing. But honestly, too, if he wants to wrap it up and come back and take us all to be with him in heaven, I'd be glad for that, too, because life's pretty hard. But I trust him with that. I know he's going to come back. So I concentrate on the things that I know, not what I don't know. And again, I don't usually mess with God's judgment. It's really his job to be that perfect judge, to dispense justice, to know what's going on. It's not my job to say what he's doing in that way. I mean, he's a big guy. He can take care of himself. I'm pretty careful about that.
That's super interesting. Let me just say that one part, because I think there's differences in different churches. Like even, the umbrella of the Christian church, there's lots of different sects within that, and denominations and everything, and cultures as well. So I'm just going to say part of what you said in Portuguese.
Please.
I wasn't expecting to speak so much Portuguese, but
That's fun.
The audience is fun. All right, so just one thing. I'm going to put what Pastor Derek said on the screen. I'm going to say it here in English and then see if I can translate in Portuguese. So you said that Jesus said that no one knows the time. So you stand firm on that, and that also you said that God said He's going to come back and fix all this terrible stuff.
Yep.
And then you also said that it's not your place to say those things.
Right.
Okay. So o pastor falou que Jesus fala que ninguém sabe o tempo, ok? Ninguém, nem Jesus, ok? Só Deus. E quando ele volta, ele vai, como se fala? Fix. I don't know how to say fix. Tudo vai ficar legal. E o pastor Derek falou também que o momento quando Jesus volta, quando, no final, tudo vai ficar melhor. Meu Deus, meu português está limitado agora. I can't say everything I want to say in Portuguese, which is a little tricky. Mas o trabalho dele não é para falar isso. Eu sei que tem pessoas tem que consertar, arrumar. They're telling me to fix is consertar e arrumar. Português é muito difícil. Mas era interessante como o pastor falou que não é o trabalho dele para falar o tempo. So ele tem fé em Deus e tem que fazer. So what we really have to do is, what is God calling us to do today?
Right.
And coming back to the topic of anxiety and coming back to, what do we do with all of this? It's if we start to think too far forward and think about, the big picture, and then we're going to spiral out.
Yeah, and really a fundamental principle of following Christ is He's in charge, and He created all things, and He knows all things, and we don't. Mm-hmm. And so He has the right to tell us how to live. And I think a lot of this stuff that we go through completely breaks His heart. This wasn't His original plan, but He's giving time for the message of forgiveness and redemption and hope to go out before He comes back, so that more people can find Him and find who He created them to be. And so, I just try to concentrate on simple kinds of things. And that's why, to me, this program is important, because I don't have all the answers. I know that for a fact, but I'm very interested in helping people discover what those are and connecting them with Jesus and the Bible and those kinds of things. So as we go along, as we continue to talk together, I really hope and pray that this will be helpful for you, and that we can just really encourage you to follow Jesus with your whole heart and want to know Him if you don't yet.
That's awesome. All right, well, Pastor Derek, thanks for going with me on this journey and for being totally open to us doing this. I look forward to connecting more with people, and it's a good little platform. I'm thankful for the technology. I'm thankful for your willingness to just kind of be open to answering anyone's questions. I think it's helpful, and this isn't designed even with people that are like, okay, church attendees, make sure you go to this. This is like anybody that wants to come, anybody that has any questions.
Yeah.
It's an open time for sure. Dante was the one that asked the questions about the churches and the end of times and all of that, and he just said thank you.
Good.
So he appreciates your response. De nada. So Mr. Derek, Pastor Derek, will you say obrigado?
Obrigado.
There you go, and say de nada.
De nada.
All right. So he said you just said thank you and you're welcome. So little Portuguese lesson.
Yeah, pray for me on the language front. I need a little bit of help there, but
Ele precisa
thanks.
pouco de ajuda para aprender português ou aquele idioma. All right, so we're probably going to be wrapping things up.
Yeah.
So over here on the screen, I'm going to put down your contact information. So we've got your email and our website, chapelcares.com. Is there anything else we want to?
No, just thanks for watching. If you have questions, or if you know that your friends have questions, make sure you let us know how we can help you. Reach out. This is fun for us to do, and we can't always be together in person, but we can at least do it through technology in this day and age. So we're grateful to have this platform to help you. So let us know, and just grateful to talk to you.
We'll see you next Thursday.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye guys.